December 19, 1944. Rocherat Krinkel, Belgium. A German scout watches as American soldiers quietly leave the shattered twin villages. There is no panic. No disorder. Tracks move silently through the snow. Engineers destroy equipment that cannot be recovered. Infantry units withdraw one after another with remarkable discipline. To the German commanders, the meaning seems obvious. After 3 days of relentless fighting, the Americans have finally broken. The road toward Liege appears open. But they are seeing exactly what the Americans want them to see. Within 2 days, one of Germany's most experienced armored divisions, the elite Segunda SS Panzer Division, will be devastated. Not because the Americans stood their ground, but because they deliberately gave it up. This was not retreat. It was a carefully planned trap. By late 1944, the German army had become trapped by one unbreakable rule: never give up ground without Hitler's personal approval. Retreat was viewed as failure, and officers who suggested it often lost their commands. Every German commander believed that if an enemy abandoned a position, it meant he had been defeated. The USA Army thought very differently. For American commanders, terrain was never the objective. Destroying the enemy was. If giving up a village allowed them to fight from stronger ground supported by overwhelming artillery, then abandoning that village was not defeat, it was good tactics. That lesson, however, had come at a terrible cost. 22 months earlier, in February 1943, American forces entered Kasserine Pass in Tunisia for their first major battle against the German army. The result was a disaster. Units became separated, tanks were abandoned, communications collapsed, and more than 6,000 American casualties were suffered in just 5 days as Field Marshal Owen Rommel's experienced forces pushed through the mountain pass. The defeat shocked American leaders. General Dwight Eisenhower immediately replaced senior commanders and demanded fundamental changes rather than excuses. But the most important transformation was invisible. The USA Army completely redesigned how its artillery operated. Instead of each artillery battalion supporting only one regiment, every battery within range could now be coordinated into a single, overwhelming strike. A lone forward observer equipped with a radio could call fire from dozens of guns spread across the battlefield. It was a revolutionary system built on speed, coordination, and precision. Ironically, the Germans left Kasserine believing they had learned the real lesson. They concluded that American soldiers would always retreat under enough pressure. That assumption would shape every German attack that followed. And only a month later, in the deserts of Tunisia, they would discover just how dangerous that belief had become. March 23, 1943. El Guettar, Tunisia. Only 4 weeks after the disaster at Kasserine Pass, German commanders expected another easy victory. Around 50 tanks from the experienced 10th Panzer Division rolled toward American positions using the same tactics that had worked so well before. At first, everything seemed familiar. German armor pushed through the front line while infantry advanced behind it. American forward positions gave way, and several tanks came dangerously close to divisional headquarters. Then the attack suddenly stalled. Hidden beneath the desert sand was a carefully prepared minefield. German crews climbed from their vehicles to clear safe paths, unaware that every second they spent in the open was exactly what the Americans had planned. Observers on nearby ridges immediately transmitted target coordinates by radio. Within minutes, artillery from multiple batteries answered the call. Instead of firing independently, dozens of guns struck the same battlefield at once. Shells landed with remarkable accuracy, trapping German tanks and infantry in a storm of coordinated fire. By midday, dozens of armored vehicles had been knocked out, forcing the 10th Panzer Division to abandon the attack. When German commanders tried again later that afternoon, American intelligence had already intercepted their plans. This time the defenders waited patiently, allowing the assault force to move deeper into the valley before unleashing another devastating concentration of artillery. The second attack collapsed just as quickly as the first. El Guettar became the first major battle in which American forces defeated an experienced German armored assault through careful planning rather than sheer numbers. But the victory revealed something even more important. After Kasserine, the USA Army had created one of the most advanced artillery coordination systems of the Second World War. Every likely road, crossroads, breach, and open field was carefully mapped before a battle even began. Forward observers registered these locations so that every artillery battery already knew the exact firing data. When enemy forces entered one of these areas, no lengthy adjustments were necessary. One short radio message was enough. The fire direction center calculated firing times for guns positioned miles apart so that shells from different batteries arrived almost simultaneously. German soldiers often received no warning. There were no ranging shots, no gradual barrage, only a sudden, overwhelming strike that seemed to appear from nowhere. The Germans believed they were advancing into abandoned ground. In reality, they were walking into a battlefield that had already been measured, calculated, and prepared long before the first enemy soldier arrived. It was a system that rewarded patience instead of stubbornness, and it would reach its deadliest form during the Battle of the Bulge. December 1944. Elsenborn Ridge, Belgium. Long before the Battle of the Bulge began, Major General Walter Robertson had already made one quiet but remarkable decision. While preparing for an offensive, he studied the terrain behind his own lines and selected a fallback position on Elsenborn Ridge, just in case everything went wrong. 5 days later, it did. On December 16, more than 1,400 German guns opened fire across the Ardennes, launching Hitler's final major offensive in the west. As American units around them were forced back, Robertson's 2nd Infantry Division fought a fierce delaying action in the villages of Rocherath and Krinkelt. Every hour they held bought precious time. But their true objective was never the villages themselves. Being the front, engineers strengthened withdrawal routes, prepared defensive positions, and artillery units quietly assembled on Elsenborn Ridge. By December 19, hundreds of American guns were already in place, waiting. That evening Robertson gave the order. Withdraw. The movement was carried out with remarkable discipline. Rearguards covered the retreat while engineers destroyed bridges and equipment that could aid the enemy. When German forces entered the abandoned villages, they believed the American line had finally collapsed. They advanced confidently toward the ridge. It was exactly what Robertson had planned. As German infantry and armor crossed the exposed, snow-covered fields, observers hidden on the high ground tracked every movement. The moment enough troops entered the open, hundreds of American artillery pieces opened fire in a massive coordinated barrage. Shells burst across the slope with devastating precision, breaking repeated assaults before they reached the defensive line. The northern shoulder of the Battle of the Bulge never fell. Yet only a few months earlier, the same artillery system had already changed the course of another battle. In August 1944, during the German counteroffensive at Mortain, just 700 American soldiers held Hill 314 after becoming completely surrounded. Rather than abandoning the position, 2 forward observers used its commanding view to direct artillery onto German columns advancing below. Roads packed with tanks and vehicles became perfect targets. For 5 exhausting days, despite being cut off and running dangerously low on supplies, the observers remained on the radio. Their artillery repeatedly disrupted German attacks, while Allied aircraft later struck the same congested roads. Operation Lutich collapsed before it could achieve its objective. Whether the Americans withdrew to stronger ground, as they did at Elsenborn, or held a vital observation point, as they did at Mortain, the outcome was remarkably similar. Everything depended on one invisible advantage: well-trained observers, precise fire planning, and artillery that could respond faster than any opponent expected. What puzzled German commanders throughout the war was not American firepower alone, it was the decisions that came before the shells ever landed. Again and again, they watched American units abandon villages, crossroads, or ridgelines that appeared perfectly defensible. According to German doctrine, there was only one explanation. An army that gave up ground had been defeated. Yet every time they advanced, they encountered the same outcome. The positions were empty. The routes ahead had already been measured. Artillery observers were watching from concealed locations, and within minutes, carefully coordinated fire crashed onto every likely avenue of approach. To German officers, it seemed almost impossible. The difference lay in philosophy. By 1944, Hitler had transformed the German army into a force that was expected to hold every position, regardless of the cost. Tactical withdrawals required approval from the highest levels of command, leaving frontline officers with little freedom to react to changing conditions. The American Army followed a completely different principle. Ground was never considered valuable by itself. It only mattered if it helped accomplish the mission. Junior officers were trusted to make battlefield decisions. If a stronger defensive position lay behind them, they could withdraw in good order, preserve their forces, and draw the enemy into carefully planned artillery zones. It was flexibility instead of rigidity. Ironically, the concept itself was not new. During the First World War, German military thinkers had pioneered the idea of elastic defense, trading ground to create better opportunities to defeat an advancing enemy. But by the Second World War, Hitler's insistence on holding every position had largely eliminated that flexibility. Meanwhile, the United States unknowingly reinvented the same principle using modern technology. Forward observers, reliable radios, fire direction centers, and coordinated time-on-target artillery transformed every planned withdrawal into an opportunity. Instead of launching costly counterattacks, American commanders allowed mathematics, preparation, and overwhelming firepower to do the work. That combination helped stop German armored offensives in Tunisia, break the counterattack at Mortain, and hold the northern shoulder of the Battle of the Bulge at Elsenborn Ridge. In the end, the most powerful American weapon was not simply artillery. It was the ability to think differently. Sometimes the strongest position was not the one soldiers defended, but the one they deliberately chose to leave behind. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of World War II's most fascinating tactical stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more carefully researched military history every week. I'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Which World War II battle should we explore next?